Once you have the spec kit templates configured inside your project, now the developer can start using the workflows that spec kit has prescribed. So what's happening these days is like you have to specify properly what is it that you want to build, and that's the kind of a prompt that you're trying to give.
Sometimes we lose traceability. There are requirements shared with us, and there is something in email, and we don't really often incorporate those requirements, and then we lose traceability completely. Today on the Wai Involve Podcast, we are driving into one of the biggest conversations in the tech world right now, Spec Kit. Since its launch in September 2025, Spec Kit has seen massive adoption, crossing an impressive 68.5K plus GitHub stars, and reshaping how teams think about specs, workflows, and AI-driven development. To unpack this momentum, we are joined by Amit Rajpurkar, an experienced software architect with over 2 decades of experience across software design, development, and large-scale systems. Amit brings a practitioner lens to evolving engineering practices. And today, we'll explore how Spec Kit and AI code assistants are changing the game for legacy applications, why teams are embracing this shift, and what it means for the future of product and engineering. Let's get started. Thank you, Amit. Thanks for being part of our podcast. First of all, we would like to know why specification-driven development is important at this point of time.
Okay, so now when we are working more and more with this AI code assistants, what's happening is now these code assistants are very good at churning out code the moment you give it a specific directions. So when you're interacting with the assistant step by step by just asking questions and being inquisitive with it, you don't have a very channelized direction in developing the code. You get an output, you get code, it works, but it's not something that you can repeatedly produce. So what's happening these days is like you have to specify properly what is it that you want to build, and that's the kind of a prompt that you are trying to give to the assistant so that it can generate the code in a very predictable manner. So doing the specifications first, breaking down the requirements, getting it into the final level details so that it can be translated into very prompts that can fulfill your particular requirements. That is becoming more and more important. And what we are observing is the more you systematically organize these processes, your software development becomes more predictable. Otherwise, it's a very ad hoc development if you don't use a specification-driven style and bring in those specific developer workflows as we are calling it these days today.
Okay, Amit, can you tell us more about your journey with Spec Kit? How you came across Spec Kit? How did you put into action?
So the way I started this journey of Spec Kit was around September, October, when I came to know about it and started experimenting. But even after learning and reading about Spec Kit from GitHub, I did not jump straight into it. So what I did was I tried to see, okay, what is the easiest application I can start experimenting. So I had a code base which was gone legacy, like meaning it was developed in 2017-16 in a certain stack of Java J2E. And I knew, like, I was trying on my other scenarios to upgrade this into the latest stack of Java with the latest libraries and everything. So I thought, okay, I know exactly what I am going to do with this. Let me experiment this application with AI agents. So AI agent was new to me. Spec Kit was new to me. So I started targeting with the AI agents first, not bringing the Spec Kit, but I brought in the concepts that Spec Kit was prescribing. So instead of doing vibe coding, I created the specifications such, they were not as detailed and good as the way Spec Kit drives it, but I started with a plan. I had a plan of action with me. So I started with that, then made the code assistant analyze my code because it was an existing code. So I'd make sure that it ran through the code and told me like what exactly the code is doing, what libraries are there, what is outdated completely. So that analysis was very much in line with the work that I had done myself beforehand. And then I gave it step by step. Okay, this is the piece I want to upgrade first. This is the migration I want to do the second, and then changed it one by one. And it took me around 5 weeks of experimenting to get that whole application revamped completely. And after that, I started using Spec in a very small manner, on trying it on a web application one by one, and creating few other apps that I could play with, and introduce more complexity one by one to it. So it took me at least 4 to 5 months, that now I'm pretty much comfortable using SpecKit, and I'm pretty quick and giving it a start and using it nicely. But my iteration cycle has reduced after 3-4 months so far. But there are still iterations, so I have to keep on making sure my feature list is as good as I want it to be. So
Amit, just like the way you started experimenting with SpecKit, we were also curious how to bring AI into teamwork, because all of us started using Cursor, GitHub Copilot, Cloud
yeah,
Code. We didn't have commonalities, we didn't have system prompts made for us.
yeah,
So we thought SpecKit is going to help us take away inconsistencies within the team. And we brought in SpecKit, started with a small project. We went ahead with VS Live, where we presented specification-driven development to large forum out there. And we realized this is a better way to develop software. If you are using smart IDEs with all the co-pilots of the world, you need a better way to collaborate with the rest of the team, because there are multiple stakeholders. You have project managers,
yeah,
you have QA, BA,
yeah.
PM, DevOps folks. And we need commonalities for all of them. And that's where we started using SpecKit. And now we have got an add-in which we want to publish. You can call it Azure DevOps extension called AI Pandit SpecKit. That will be available on Azure Marketplace. We want to, and this is a community edition, so it's going to be free.
Oh, okay.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of folks are waiting for this kind of ID, because
That's very good.
if you see BA, PM, they don't use
Yeah.
these IDs. They want to
IDs.
use tools which are familiar to them. So that is where
Correct,
is
correct.
coming.
Because all of these here is markdown based, text, and
Yeah.
all the other roles in software development, they are either using Word files or Excels or other such documents. So getting them accustomed to writing all these things in a markdown will be a little learning curve. I mean, though it's not that hard.
Yeah.
But typically the software houses or organization, they will be the first to adapt this very well, and then followed by the others. I mean, that's how I'm thinking it's going to be. But it will be interesting to see how to let everybody collaborate and contribute to the specifications and all these good files.
And with prompts that we had for vibe coding, usually we often see developers doing it. But when it comes to
Correct.
enterprise grade, the software development, you have various stakeholders. So do you think
Yes.
SpecKit or specification development will involve everybody in the process?
Yeah. So what's happening with specification-driven development is you have to produce a lot of documentation. Meaning you start with your requirements. Typically, as usual, I mean, the requirements come as a one-liner statement or maybe a little more elaborate in the email. So what happens is you start to decompose that requirement, try to make it more specific, break down into more finer details till the point it is so fine-grained that it can be translated as a instruction to the AI assistant. So that whole process actually elaborates your documentation so much. So you're writing a lot of textual description before you actually start coding. So you make your specifications, you break them down into different user stories, you break down the user stories into feature lists, and then make a plan of action as to how to tackle in which sequence. And that all is a documentation. Now, this is not something that typically a developer does. So a combination of your principal or a tech lead kind of a role, who is working in tandem with a project manager, with a system analyst, and a business user. So all of them together can come up with this specification to the degree that is required. So this is not a one-man job. This is a job where you're the typical software team, which involves a project manager, your architect, or your senior most developer. They all work together to reach to that specification, and then they can start breaking it down into user stories, features, and make a plan out of it. So this is all before the developer can actually start, using the AI assistant to make the code. So that's the pattern we want to reach.
And with vibe coding, Amit, what I've seen, if you are providing limited inputs, then you are allowing AI to assume a lot of stuff. And when AI
Correct.
assumes it, it is going to bring that assumption into play, and then you are going to get output which is based on AI's assumption. But in case of specification-driven development, is there a way to get your requirements clarified, analyzed, and various other aspects? So can you
Very
delve
much, very
further
much, very
into it?
much.
Yeah.
Definitely. So you have different concepts coming around. So driven development has been around like a couple of months now. People have been experimenting with this quite a lot. I mean, as we see even on the GitHub, where you have a spec kits repo, the number of star
Yeah.
ratings is increasing. But at the same time, we have two more concepts playing a very important role as well. So you have specification, which is very much targeted towards your project or application. Then you want to control the behavior of your AI assistant, meaning like the assistant is working as if it's a Java developer, a full stack Java developer. That means it has to adhere to those principles all the way through, no matter what. Same thing, you can have the agent behave as if it's a senior Python developer, right? So you
Right.
have this agent specification which is meant to last not just for this project but for any Java project that you develop or any Python project. So that concept is also equally coming up. That means you standardize your role, like, okay, your agent is going to behave as if it's a Java developer. That becomes your agent MD file, which has to be part of your AI assistant always. And then on the top of it, you have very project specifications involved, which is very well focused towards the application. So that's your specification. And as you break down the specification into different project plan and the tasks, what happens is within the application, you will always have a code review. You will always follow a certain design pattern. So that becomes your repeatable task that your coding agent will do for no matter which kind of projects that you do. For a Java application, you will always have a code review. You always have a TDD style development. So that becomes the specific skills. So the notion or concept of skills is also becoming equally important. So you have agent at one side where you are demarcating that, okay, your coding assistant, you are going to develop like a Java developer only. Then you specify for the project, this is what I want to make. And then within the task list, once you start developing, you're enforcing that coding agent, okay, you do this kind of a skills. That means while writing the code, use the TDD style development. After writing the code, make sure you're doing the code review. So this is the skill you're always going to repeat. So now your predictability becomes more easier. So you can enforce that agent to behave in a very specific way by bringing in the skills, by demarcating it with the agents.md file, which is more like your constitution for their agent to behave. So your the assumptions, as you are saying, right? So you can reduce the assumption down with these three concepts working in tandem.
Amit, can you explain the process if I want to get started with a, let's say, greenfield project? How do I get started? You talked about constitution, you talked about agents.md file. Can you please elaborate the entire process or workflow for us?
Yeah. So typically, like the easiest way, like if it is a greenfield project and the developer wants to learn this new, the Spec library, which can be treated as a tool, it comes up with a very good encapsulated setup. You just use the Spec you initialize the project. You can have it as a Java project as a default. Within the Java project, you can initialize Spec. What it brings is with it will populate all the Spec templates within your project's root folder. And it will also try to identify which kind of AI assistant you are using. Are you using Cursor? Are you using Cloud Code? Once you tell like this is assistant is like this, it will make the templates work for that assistant. So once you have the spec kit templates configured inside your project, now the developer can start using the workflows that spec kit has prescribed. So you always start with the constitution. Now in the constitution you define like, okay, what kind of coding style you want to follow. Now this is the
Mhm.
principles which agents.md typically have going forward.
All right.
But before they became popularized, I mean, Spec already had brought in the notion of a constitution saying, okay, even for the project, these are the main guiding principles that we want to incorporate. So that's what we do in the constitution, and then you start to specify. That means you give your specification. Once you give it, then you can try to verify that is your specification good enough. So there is a clarify command which will try to ask you more questions. So here the agent is asking you question, okay, your specification is like having this much ambiguity, so give me the options. So what do you want to do? So
Right.
once you complete that cycle of clarifying your specification well, now you can run the plan for your specification. It creates a task list, breaks it down
Mhm.
into a feature list. You can create actionable tasks out of your feature list as a next step, and then you can move forward towards implementing the task. You can even try to analyze the task in front or before trying to implement, but that's the combination you can do. So you specify your plan, your task, and your implement. Those are the main workflow chains that you get when you are using the spec kit. Now spec kit is giving you just one style of workflow. It's not necessary that you have to stick to that, but it's a very good starting point for someone who wants to see how the spec driven development works. This is really a best starter tool, you would say, to initiate yourself to understand how this actually works and how this is going to help you in the long run.
And Amit, the main challenge that I've seen oftentimes is estimation. So, for example, if something is going to be done by very seasoned, skilled person, then let's
Yeah,
say it takes 10 hours of 10 man hours. And
yeah,
as opposed to somebody who is not as skilled as that person, it takes slightly more. Uh,
yeah.
in this case, you have a couple of tasks which are going to get executed by AI agents. You have human in the loop as well. Now, how do you account for everything and how do you estimate so that it becomes predictable?
Yeah, so this is a trickier one to answer as well. The general assumption is, oh, now you have an AI agent, right? You are going to cut
Yeah.
down the time. So it mainly depends upon how much you are accustomed to make use of this assistant. So if you have repeatable skills defined, you know the predictability of it. So you can reduce your time short. But what I've seen, like I've tried at least 6-7 projects with SpecKit and bringing in these different aspects of agents and skills. So you do a lot of iterations with the coding agent. So if your specification not clear, if you're not detailed
Mhm.
down, okay, what is the desired pattern I want to follow and what is the outcome I'm looking at, you are going to have a lot of churn. You are going to have a lot of
Right.
iterations. So
Yeah.
so in order to bring down the estimation time, it will take a little learning curve for the developer to be accustomed. Okay, how much I have to do the specification, till what level of details I have to go, and then have my collection of skills with me, a collection of agents
Right.
file with me. Now that will make my prediction very easier. So that can give me a very better estimation, guidelines to bring down my sizing.
And is it possible to feed this information back to PECKIT so that next time it is aware that, oh, this kind of task, it usually takes X amount of X number of hours. So can we use specification kit or spec kit as a live document, which we keep enriching further as we go on?
So SpecKit can be used to elaborate your user stories so that you have a single document which has a collection of user stories and features in it. That definitely it can do. You can expand on a single spec, or even if you want to have multiple specifications, like one specification for a user story one or for a feature one, you can do a collection of those chunks as well. So your project can have, let's say, 2 or 3 specification files. That's all right as well. But
Mhm.
SpecKit will not tell you about the estimation part of it. So that's
Okay.
something that we as a human will need to speculate or guesstimate, like how we have to come up to those numbers. And it will take an experience, because initially when you are starting with the AI tools, your estimation are going to be a little higher. It will be less than
Right.
your humans developing it end to end. But as you are trying to get more and more seasoned by using the AI tools, by using all the skills libraries, then your time estimation is going to reduce.
When it comes to traceability, I've seen this in every project. Sometimes we lose traceability. There are requirements shared with us, and there is something in email, there is something done
Yeah.
over Teams or Zoom calls, and we don't really often incorporate those requirements, and then we lose traceability completely. So how do you ensure traceability is achieved with help of SpecKit?
So that aspect I've seen work pretty well, at least with the SpecKit as a tool. So as you start with the SpecKit / commands, so as SpecKit puts in all those templates in your project folder for your AI toolkit, what it does, it gives you a sequence of / commands. So as you do the specify plan task, it will have a proper code given to every feature list, to every user stories. Even the task will carry the respective codes, and they are all chained together. So
Right.
as you run through these commands, your AI assistant knows that this particular task T032 is tied with the feature number F03. It is tied to user story 1. So those chain of traceability is available with the AI tool, and it's pretty good at recognizing that, because you started with the specification all the way down to the task. It maintains that links. So your traceability till the code is very much available to you at the coding agent itself. So it will spin out like, okay, what was the user story that started this task. So you can go back and forth around the traceability. So that it's pretty good doing that.
For somebody who is a seasoned architect, how do they take advantage of specification-driven development? How can they ensure standards being followed, certain patterns and practices put in place?
So that becomes the role where you have the agents file involved, the skills file involved, because your specs are project specific. So when a senior architect is taking a look at your project delivery, it's good to have a control over your agents file. So here you will tell, okay, what are the design principles a Java developer will have to follow, or what are the demarcations you will have to follow, or what are the coding styles he has to follow. So those can be controlled in the agent file, which is a main constitution like document, which can apply to any series of projects which are for that particular type of developer. So those kind of controls can be exercised by the architect. Similarly, on the skills part, when we know the repeatable skills or tasks which can be across any number of projects, those can be controlled as well. So if we as an enterprise or organization, if we can have a collection of skills with us, and we can prescribe our developer that, okay, if you are developing a project in certain technology stack, make sure you are using this agent file, make you sure you're using this collection of skills, and you can have additional skills alongside with it. So that will help our architects to have control over these projects which are built using the AI tools like Cursor or Claude or others.
All right, Amit, every industry has got specific set of requirements, certain set of compliances mandatory for their domain. How do you make sure SpecKit adheres to that? What is the mechanism to follow those requirements or compliance needs?
Okay, so in the workflow that SpecKit has given us, you do have a step where you can run a checklist as well. So what this does is you have given the specifications, and then you create your requirements out of it. So before you go into the step of implementation or into the step of making code changes, this will run through your specs. Try to see where are your are your specification adhering to your constitution. If you have given some governing principles as to what not should be done when developing the code, like if you want to demarcate around, okay, you use OAuth for authentication, or you have to use your Microsoft Active Directory or some other mechanisms or a JWT token authentication, then are you validating those in your requirement? Do you have that in your plan? So those kind of cross checks can be handled through checklist, and they can just tag and flag your code saying, okay, these things are not done yet. So you will get that output from your assistant saying your whole the set of specifications that you have and the requirement generated out of it are not yet complete. So don't go ahead and start implementing before you complete these open items. So that's the mechanism that they have provided us to do that.
Now, when it comes to, we talked about greenfield project. Let's talk about brownfield project, where you are already in development. Your next set of enhancements are coming up. How do you bring in SpecKit at this point of time when you have made a significant progress with your project?
Yeah, definitely. So that works as well. So let's say this is not a greenfield project. You already have certain core set in it. Before you start, I mean, you can always start with the constitution. Constitution can be initiated by SpecKit no matter what. Now, before you start doing the specify command, run the analyze command first. So let it see what code base you have. So you can put your analyze command before you specify. So you do that, try to understand the code base so the AI assistant has a chance to read through the entire file sets, and then it can see like what is made, what is available, how is the architecture and design of this code base, and then you specify saying, okay, in this this is the new feature I want to introduce. Let's say it's a website. Let's say it's some EDA website. I want to add a new feature to it, saying, okay, introduce this particular aspect. I want a tile on this particular page, and this is the feature that the tile should do. So you can add that specification once the analysis of the code base is done, and then you follow the whole path as to you plan, you do the clarify, and all those steps can happen. So you can do a piece by piece implementation of new features on your existing code bases.
As far as learning curve is concerned, let's say if there is a team which is already developing a project or a product and they want to incorporate SpecKit into their project, how long will it take for them to get up to speed, and what are your guidelines for teams?
Yeah, I mean, SpecKit is not at all hard to learn. Having it use, I mean, once you have your corporate guardrails to allow you to use the installation tools like npm, uv, and others, you can always have the SpecKit library available on your workspace, on your local environment. As you start working, just you have to initiate SpecKit inside your project, and then you can start working with the command. The slash commands are very much self-explanatory. They're just 2-3 life cycles that you have to adhere to. The easiest one is specify, plan, tasks, and implement. But you can just play around with the other steps in between, and it's very, very easy to catch up. Just give it a try on one project or two, and it's very easy. Within a week's time, the developers and even the analysts on the team will be very well versed with using this tool. And in the advanced stage, once you're familiarized with how the specification-driven development works, I have seen developers handcrafting the specification file themselves. So that's a little advanced developers doing that today. So once you know how to use SpecKit, and once you are confident of the spec-driven development, you can even start handcrafting these templates yourself.
So as we have seen development progressing from IDEs to AI agents-enabled IDEs, and now you are talking about SpecKit. So SpecKit along with AI-enabled IDEs, I understand it is going to help us improve our developer velocity index, productivity. Now, along with that, is it possible to plug in more and more agents? For example, if I want to get code review done by some other agents, have you come across such practices?
Yeah, definitely developers are doing it. I personally have not tried it out, but definitely you can incorporate like let us say you are using Claude or Cursor. So even within your skills where you have the code review skills, you can say for code review, this is my MCP configuration, and point it to some other tool that can do the code review for it. So you literally have two different AI assistant one doing the actual development, one doing a
Yeah.
review, one doing verification of the implementation as well. That's very much possible. I mean, the more and more you experiment and explore into this, there are a lot of things which are possible, and you can have multiple agents working together in tandem. Then that's very much a reality of today, and you can definitely do it.
And Amit, since you talked about various workflows, can you talk about happy path that you have followed and you have successfully seen delivering value to your end customers with this flow? So can you please elaborate the happy path that you have seen?
Yeah, so you always will have iterations to reach your final target. I mean, this is something that you must know and keep it in mind. So,
Mm.
I mean, the recent experiment I have done is I had a data hackathon just 7-8 days back, and then I tried to replicate what I delivered with my partners, and at that particular competition, okay, let's make a web application out of it. Just as an experiment, and then trying to use SpecKit along with the skills and agent files to make that thing happen. So the iterations that go in, once you specify even to a depth that you want, and you reach all the way down from planning to task implementation, as you implement feature by feature or do a set of tasks, so you don't never tell your coding agent or AI assistant to like 100 tasks at a time. Never do that. So you always have to chunk, okay, these are the set of tasks I will do first, and then you have to manually validate. So that validation and verification step is very critical to understand, okay, how the agent is working. You can verify the code, or you can verify the compiled output itself. You can check either from the application or from the code base, whichever one you're fastest or comfortable with, and then you go as a chunk of tasks ahead, one at a time. So this is going to take iterations. It can spin up for a couple of days as well. But as
Right.
you specify more and more, because let's say you out of 100 tasks you implemented 30, after reaching a task number 30, you will find, oh, I needed some extra feature in my specifications. So you will go back to specify and then add new sub features to your original specs. So that is a part of your life cycle. So you are going to do that repetition and iterations a couple of times till you know exactly, okay, how to specify to what degree, to what level of specificity. So your iteration cycle definitely will depend upon how much you play with it and how much you
Mhm.
know what your exact output is going to be. So till the time your final output is as per expectation, you have to keep on experimenting. So that, and even in the recent one, just like after almost 7 or 8 days of trials, I was able to get that application working the way I wanted to. So even for a simple app, it took me that much time. And of course, being a hobby developer, like I could just spend a few hours a day here and there.
Right.
But that's the kind of time span I'm looking at. And if I try to extrapolate this to an enterprise level, I mean, I am looking at a fair amount of iteration, especially if I'm not a single person. If I'm a team of, let's say, 6 or 7 developers, analysts, everybody involved, this is going to take some iterations and timeline to get a good product delivered out.
And in typical project lifecycle, we often came across change request. Customers will change their mind. They will talk about something which they haven't really shared with us earlier. How do we deal with change requests in SpecKit pattern?
Definitely. So even in my experience that I saw in the recent experiment I did, so after doing all like task number 30, 35, when I found like, okay, this is what I'm seeing on the web page, I need to add some more specification. I need to tweak the feature or add some more features. So that's typically my change request scenario in a business or real life world, and those are going to happen. So even when we do agile development, we have the 2 week sprints, right? Or you can even shorten your sprint period. But as you are doing your development with the AI tools, you can reduce your sprint times and then bring in your customer early, and the business user saying, okay, this is what's coming out. from the specifications we have captured so far. And then as the users keep on adding more and more change requests, you can start altering and feeding more of these features into your specifications and then run through. So you can maintain a mechanism of introducing these CRs because they're being added to the specification. Each time you want to introduce a CR, you are adding to a specification or you're creating a new set of specs. So
Right.
so that's your way that you're going to manage the change request in this kind of an environment.
In your experience, when you use SpecKit, and let's say there is a large team that is using all these AI agents, IDs, smart IDs, and then they also start using SpecKit, how would you compare them, and how much of advantage or how much of time gain that you see from time to market standpoint when you use SpecKit with all these smart IDs?
So time to market definitely can be controlled and reduced. The thing is, all the developers and analysts in the team has to use the exact same setup. So that's something has to be enforced. You cannot
Yep.
have. I mean, you can use different IDs. That's perfectly all right. So you can have one developer working on Cursor, some on Claude. That still works. But you have
Yep.
to adhere to your skills, your agent files, and the specification. Specification has to be consistent within the team who is working on one single project. So you should not be deviating from it. So once you have that exercise within the team, you can definitely make your delivery faster, and the speed to market is very much reduced. The time to market is reduced.
And Amit, when we work with different IDs, there are multiple LLMs supported, and there are few which are super specialized in one area. There are few which are different in other areas, reasoning model, coding model. So how do you take those LLM capabilities into mind while introducing SpecKit in an organization?
Yeah, so SpecKit is very much independent of the LLM models. So the main job of this tool is to allow you to give the specifications, and it will help you break down those into different user stories, tasks, and such. So make your development predictable. So it won't dictate to you what kind of LLM model you should be targeting. So you can use like a GPT 5.2 reasoning model, or you can use like a Claude Opus model or Claude Sonnet models. They all give different degree of depth. I mean, it will give you almost similar outputs, but there will be some variation in which what GPT produces as a documentation is compared to what Claude produces as documentation. But there is no prescribed style yet to tell, okay, use Claude only for coding or use GPT only for documentation. There is nothing like that yet. So all of them are good. It just different trial and errors we have to just go through, and possibly within a couple of weeks or even months, there might be some more directions to us all.
All right, Amit. So my last question to you: we have a lot of technical folks watching this podcast, and do you have guidelines or tips for them as you have used SpecKit? Can you tell us more about your way of looking at SpecKit?
Yeah, so specifying your requirements for this AI tool is definitely a key. So you have to develop your skill set on being more specific and breaking down this functional needs that is coming from the business team. That's one. Second thing is the spec kit is going to help you to break down this into tasks and allow the AI assistant to work on your behalf or work for you, not on your behalf, but mainly work for you. Now that the AI code assistant is doing a job, the second important thing is to do the verification. So you have to be skilled enough to do the verification very fast and quick, because this assistant is producing code very quickly at an unbelievable rate. So you have to be very good at catching what are the tiny things that this assistant missed out. What this means is you have to be very thorough with your actual coding skills. So if you are a Java developer and the AI assistant is doing a Java coding along with you, you have to be very thorough in the Java library and to no matter what. Same thing with if you are a React developer, you are a Python developer, you must know your things. Otherwise, it's impossible for you to catch something that the AI code wrote it for you. So
True.
that kind of skill set is very, very important. That's something that cannot go away. So you have to be a champion in your specific coding skills in order to work with this assistant well. Otherwise, the assistant will just pin up something that you cannot assume that this is just working out of the box.
So thank you, Amit, for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. There is a lot that we learned today, and I'm pretty sure we will have a lot of things available to us to learn in future as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I had a good time as well. Thank you.